I'm John Robeson. I'm here in Enfield with Rick Lees, and we are looking at the shell that will become a restored 1974 Jensen 440 Interceptor drop head. This car is just back from the metal strippers. They use liquid and abrasive compound to take off paint, rust, and other matter in a more environmentally responsible manner than us grinding it off with sanders here and blowing it into the air. And I'd like to just show you some features of this. Over there in the corner, you can see a Ferrari 308 GT4 going through the same process, but right now we're looking here at the Jensen. So let's just show some of this lead work on this.
And back in this era, there was lead used all over the place.
See that? This is lead.
And
see this dimpling here? This is where they hammered the body down, and then they filled it with lead and smoothed it.
It looks like this was a repair after the fact because the lead's
split.
been melted out. Likely the body split right here, so they cleaned the lead out, they put a patch in, and then they used modern fillers within here to smooth it over.
Now, Jensen took a lot of guidance in bodybuilding from the people at Press Steel who built Rolls-Royce bodies, and they also did this lead work, and by 1974 they had a big problem with it cracking. So in a Rolls-Royce, the lead would crack, and people didn't understand what was going on, and they would sand the paint because the paint was cracked, and they would paint it, and it would just crack again the next year. They didn't realize that that was because the lead foundation was split and the paint wouldn't hold over the crack. So here, Jensen has figured this out. So in this area where it cracked, they actually they melted the lead out with a torch. That's why you see a little gully here on the seam. And they welded in a steel panel to replace the lead. And you can see here, this leading is rough looking, and that's actually because the high pressure abrasive liquid that we stripped the car with.
That's a result of the media.
That actually stripped it.
This was blasted with combinations of plastic media, sand aggregate medias, whatever media was appropriate for it. We also spent an awful lot of time scraping and getting rid of all of the thick undercoating.
Yeah, there was a heavy mess of Let's show them this seam here. This is interesting because it's on a lot of these cars of the day.
This is very interesting. Right along here, you can see this very fine line.
See that line that we're following back?
And we've seen this in all of the Italian coachwork cars, a lot of the English coachwork cars that have the front end all welded as one piece.
Yeah.
Instead of unboltable fenders. They couldn't press all these panels at once. So this is a very, very typical seam between the fender and the top panel.
And it's interesting, look at this. Look at these hammer marks where these are brought together, but then cast your eye down to the smooth curve here. So you can see there's no body damage down here. This is not an accident. This is how the metal was formed, and this is where they had to actually hammer it into shape and then weld this line. Yep. So this is all the work of the original craftspeople. Let's take a look back here on the cowl, and you can really see. Look at all this lead here, see? See all of that? And this is where Rolls-Royces were infamous for cracking. And so here, we will probably take this lead out of here and we will replace it with either either like a Marglass type product or one of the more sophisticated products that blends metal powder with waterproof plastic and glassing particles, and that's it's a healthier thing to work with certainly, and probably a more durable thing than the lead.
It's very interesting to see, John, all of the individual panels that they used in the construction of the car. All of this was done at the factory. All of these small pieces and small patches, the seams in here, the edging.
Let me just step back here and let's hit some of those to show. So here we've circled a rust spot. That's a defect we're going to have to fix. But look at this rough welding here. It'd be easy to say this is lousy bodywork, but it's not. It's not Jensen made this car. Look at that. That again, it looks like it is a patch, but it's a patch from Jensen, not from a repair shop. And gives you a sense of really how almost homemade. These cars were made in a factory, but it was not anything that you would recognize as a car factory today. This was really made in something that was more like a sophisticated home workshop. And yet, we end up with these iconic cars, and now we are faced with the task of restoring them all these years later.
Another interesting feature in here is this almost a false
It's like a double
front
wall.
floor.
Yeah, it's like a double hull in a
They
ship.
built a chassis and then they draped the bodywork around it.
And I think they bought some of this stuff from the pressed steel people, and then they fabricated other stuff themselves. Another thing, you want to just show them the bracing that we have welded in here to have the car hold its shape?
Yeah, we've taken and welded these pipes in. We bolted
See these?
here. This is a seatbelt anchor, so we know it's good structure. And we welded to the A-post, and that helps keep it on in its structure.
And underneath, you can see we have the car also attached to a stand, so we can roll it around, but more than...
It's mounted right here on its shock mounts.
Yeah,
Again, a structural part of the car that was designed to carry the weight of the chassis. And we did the same thing in the front. We've anchored it here
you see how you can see right through
in
there?
the suspension. So what we try to do is we try to anchor it in the suspension points where it sits naturally as it would have.
And that is how we ensure that when we restore this body with no doors, nothing else, that when we put it back together, everything will be in proper registration. So this is just a little vignette into the restoration of the Boch Collection's Jensen Interceptor.